Hello, everyone. I'm Dak, and this is Dak Chats. Now, right off the bat, you've noticed the title. This is a channel primarily dedicated to Big Brother coverage. I'll definitely be covering more stuff in the future, but right now today is the premiere of Big Brother Season 24. And I have been a literally lifelong fan of Big Brother. And I finally decided, you know what? I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to start talking about a show that I have known my whole life. And I'm really excited to see where we can take this and how far this can grow. And yeah, so let's just jump into it. Tonight, season 24. I have been a lot more excited about this season than I normally am for upcoming seasons. And I couldn't tell you why, but I've always theorized that the even number seasons tend to be my favorites more often than not. So anytime it's an even number season, I'm like, well, hopefully this one lives up because for me personally, they have year after year. Sometimes the odd ones are hit and miss, but even ones always hit for me at this point. But yeah, I've been super excited for this season, and normally when the cast preview drops during preseason, I can look at the previews and I see a couple of people that I'm interested in that I might think are going to do really well, and people that I'm going to look forward to watching. But a cast as a whole, it's always very difficult for me to get attached right away. Normally, I find it challenging to connect with him or even just really get excited about any one particular cast member. And I gotta say, that didn't happen this time. I had the cast drop yesterday, and from the get go, I was intrigued. And the preseason interviews this season were a lot more lackluster than what we're used to from previous seasons. We usually get three or four different outlets outside of Big Brother's own in-house preseason interviews that they've always done with Jeff. There's usually three or four other outlets that are doing interviews, and we didn't get that this year. I don't think we got that last year either. I know we got some, but the last few seasons, especially since 22, we haven't been getting as much as we're used to. But what we did get, I love the format that Us Weekly did with Sharon Tharp. And for me, I found it a lot easier to follow along with that form of video where I didn't have to go searching for each individual person. I didn't have to pick and choose which person I'm more interested in watching interviews for. I didn't have to go through that judge a book by its cover. They just threw everything in there. And short, simple, quick answers or questions, and then their answers to those questions. And I just love the way they formatted that personally. So we got not quite a bit, but from my opinion, I feel like we got some fairly good quality, at least format. And for me, it allowed me to kind of observe them a little bit better because I could just kind of take a sample of each one. And there were a few players that did stick out to me from the get-go. Kyle was one of them that he had a great personality. Between Big Brother and Survivor, a lot of times we see these people that are unemployed and made to kind of look like, slackers and freeloader. That's how they've been portrayed in past seasons in their initial, you know, introduction, and that doesn't really ever pan out. Not always. I mean, there's always the exceptions, but you know, I've always been drawn to that because it shows their creativity, right? If you're not working, it gives you a lot of room to be creative. if you're in that right mindset. But they've always proven to be go-getters and have great personalities and really good people. So I saw him and I was like, based on what I'm getting and based on his energy and the answers to his questions, I really liked it a lot. And I thought Kyle was going to be a decent pick from the get-go. We'll see how that pans out. He talked a big game, literally, about trying to win and gun for that first HOH, like a lot of players did, and it didn't work out for him. But he didn't go out first, and he didn't go out second. He made it to the final round, and he was just a tad too slow. But I'm excited to see where he goes moving forward. I think his personality from past house guests, that's really been an upside for people that are similar to him in that aspect. So I'm excited to see how far he goes. And he gave some really good answers, in my opinion, to a lot of the questions that they gave. Another player that I was actually really excited going into this season from the interviews was Daniel. Daniel is, as a super fan, is everything that I see in myself. He's been watching since season 1. I have too, and I was too young to have any comprehension of what was going on. I was 3 or 4 at the time, but I've been watching since season 1, and watching his raw emotion from when he's sitting in the diary room and he's just crying because he's so excited to be there, and going in, he's saying it too. He's like, I got to win this HOH, this first one. And I think it was, I got all the names here because honestly, I cannot remember everyone off the get-go. It always takes me a while, especially for some. Michael said from the very beginning in his first DR session tonight, he said, statistically, you are, I think he said, 4 times as likely to win the game winning that first HOH. And that's true. I don't know the exact math. He does because he said he's done it. But anyone that's familiar with RHAP and Taryn, he went through, him and a friend of his went through and calculated everything. And that's true because that was always a big kind of question. Do you win the first HOH? Because it was always believed in the past that it's going to put a huge target on your back winning that. But you don't get any control. And for the first week, when no one knows what's happening and no one knows what's going on, being able to be safe and set the tone and being in that position of power where you are the guy. There's been no other HOH. There is no other, especially with all newbies, there is no other perceived leader. I mean, Pooch could possibly come across as maybe a perceived leader only because he was singled out. He's safe for the week, and he got to make decisions on who else was safe. That could throw not a wrench, but alter perception slightly. I don't think so, though. I think that it's actually a big downside for him just even sitting up there, because I think visually you get all the house guests, and they're all looking at each other, all 15 of the ones that are down playing, and they're like, well, this is us, and he's not a part of us because he's not part of this. And I think subconsciously it could do some damage to him going forward. It could maybe have a slight impact on his ability to form relationships with the house as a whole. Again, it's a benefit that he's safe because that'll give him a little bit more time to catch up from that. But we're going to have to see how that goes for him. But Daniel, I'm excited to see what he does because from the answers that I was getting, he was a little bit kind of giving you what you want, or giving the correct answers from a superfan perspective. But in my opinion, they were correct. maybe his delivery wasn't exact, but you know, you're he's excited and he's ready to get in, and so it's it's difficult to kind of formulate your thoughts precisely when you're just being asked on the spot. And I get the vibe that those questions they were being asked at the same time that they were asking them to answer. It's not like I don't know that they got to look at them ahead of time, but I don't know that they didn't. That's kind of my assumption, just based on how the interview was laid out. But who knows? I don't know. We'll see, but I do think that he has a lot of potential, and coming in winning this first situation is going to be huge for him. It's going to be really helpful so he can get people to come to him. He's going to be able to set the tone and set the mood for where this season's going to go. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens. So yeah, this is going to be a really fun week. I'm pumped. Pumped to be here and get going with you guys. What's some other stuff? I did like the fact that we're back to kind of the OG introductions. I know it's cheesy. Part of me can't stand oh, look, I got my key, when they obviously, they're pretending to be surprised, but they obviously know that they're in. One thing I thought of, though, was, do they do this? Do they film this for all of their backups? Because Joseph wasn't part of the main cast. He was an alternate. So, in the last, maybe 24 hours since they made the swap from Marvin to Joseph, did they film that little intro? No, he was already in the hotel. So that means if they're only filming for the second round of cast members, because I believe they have an alternate for each of the main cast members. That's my understanding. Could be wrong, but that's the way I understand it. So are there 16 extra videos of those each season from players that are told, oh, you might get in, and then maybe not, or most likely don't? That would suck because their whole family's doing it, and I'm sure they're told that they're alternates, but I don't know how you would gain enough momentum to film something like that and pretend to be excited when you know that most likely you are not going to get what you're excited for. That's just something that popped in my head. I was like, man, that sucks for anyone that's been an alternate that has done that. I'm curious how many of those videos are out there of all these alternates that never got cast. I'm sure they probably delete them one after one or season after season, but who knows? So anyway, moving on. Who else stood out to me? Monty is interesting. I know that from his interview, he mentioned on one of them that said, yeah, I'm a personal trainer. That's what I do for work. But I don't want anyone, like, people assume that all I do is hang out in the gym all day. And, well, yeah, they do assume that because that's your job. But I think that's just reading too much into what he's saying. He's a buff guy, and there is a stereotype when it comes to personal trainers, unfortunately. And I think that's kind of what he's getting at, is people are going to assume that maybe he is not as mentally skilled as he might be physically, which obviously is not the case. And so I'm excited. I know that he didn't come across to be a very big fan. I believe, I could be getting some of this stuff wrong. I got to fact check, but I do believe he said he's only seen a couple seasons So, I'm excited. I've tried to. If it were up to me, I would only want them to cast super fans, but it's not. So I've tried to be a little bit more welcoming and accepting of the fact that that's just not the case. It's not always going to be a bunch of super fans. We can't have a whole cast of that unless it's all stars, and even some of the stars on All Stars are still not huge fans even after they spent a whole season on the show and back for their second. So we're just not always going to get that, unfortunately. But at least hopefully we can get some good quality people that are going to pick up on the game. Say what you want about Paul, but he was a recruit in his first season in 18, and about halfway through the game, he started to pick it up. And it was almost too little too late. I mean, he made second place, but it was almost too little too late for him. He took that knowledge and that experience, and it geared him into a really good player next season. Now, whether he was deserving to lose or not, that's another debate. But you can at least see where it's at least a good example of how a recruit became a fierce, really good player, honestly, regardless of how he went about it, whether he deserved to win, whether he deserved to lose. That at least, I think everyone can at least agree that he made a huge improvement. And for recruits, it shows that we can at least have someone that can pick up on the game, even if they're not a fan, get in it, start to understand how it works, and pick it up real quick. And I'm hoping that we get that out of some of our players this season. Monty, to me, seemed like someone that might. But I didn't observe as much from him, so we'll have to see how that goes, but I am excited to see him. Another player that I liked a lot was Terrence. I heard someone say that, they hope that he doesn't just become another, just wants to hang out with the cool kids. I hope not. I don't think he will, but he has some good positive energy, and he seems like a cool guy, so we'll see how far that goes. But, if anything, if we've learned anything in the last few seasons, it's whether it's Cliff or Tiffany, as the oldest person last season, and Terrence is the oldest person this season. Just because you're the oldest person doesn't mean that you can't go far and you can't play amazing. So I'm always excited to see the older players bring their life experience into it and, show how the game can be played. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be first boot just because you're the oldest. So we'll see how far that goes.
All right. Well, obviously, this clip looks a little bit different than the last one. I have never done any YouTube or anything like that. And after filming that first clip about halfway through, the audio just cut off. So it was late at night by the time I got to editing it, and I wasn't able to film the second part last night. So it's next day. I'm in my truck on my break, and I just want to get this out because I'm excited to get going and get started. And I want to get this out to you guys as soon as I can. So bear with me. This first season is going to be a little rocky for me trying to get all the odds and ends and work out the kinks. But like I've been saying, I'm excited to get going and to start putting out content for you guys and just have a great summer with Big Brother. So I'm just going to go over the last couple points that I tried to make last night. Another player that I was really interested in seeing going in is Nicole. We've seen how being a cop or ex-cop has benefited some, obviously, like Derek. but I do think that it is a little bit overhyped. Not every officer we've seen come into the game has been successful. Now, there's been a handful of really successful ones on Survivor. It does give you a little bit of an upside going into the game. Being used to, I don't want to say manipulating, but even as an officer, you do have to kind of manipulate to get people to give you information. Even if you're just a patrol officer, you have to get people to talk to you and open up to you in ways that they don't want to initially. And so I'm hoping that she's able to take some of that experience. It was, I think she said 10 years ago since she was an officer. But hopefully she's able to take some of her history and what she's learned, and skills and turn that into something. So we'll see. I'm really excited. Paloma is interesting. Now, this is a little bit cheaty because it's next day. So we've already kind of had the feeds, but, won't get into anything there, but it does appear that just from the little bit that I've seen, just a little bit, that she might be someone worth paying attention to. From last night, I got the vibes that she's very smart, and we'll see how she's able to move forward. But I am excited. Taylor is another one. I didn't get anything from her last night over the feeds. The majority of these people I haven't heard anything from overnight yet. Just a couple names that I've seen thrown out there, but so pretty much all of this is still based off preseason cast assessment and the premiere. But she does seem like someone that could have a lot of potential. Being in the pageant industry, it does force you to work with a lot of big egos. So hopefully that is something that she is used to and she can manage. I think that'll finish it up for this. Obviously, we didn't get around to everyone. Not everyone stood out to me. We could go for hours if we just went and tried to profile each individual one based on each individual player, based on what little bit that we've seen so far. Really, it's going to just get into this first week and unfolding who these people are and how they interact and how they come across and what type of players they appear to be. After the first 2 to 3 weeks is when we really start to see a lot of momentum from certain players, and we start to get an idea of who's going to be, the people to look out for. So I think from there, we're just going to go ahead and end it there. I do want to mention, I'm still trying to figure all of this out. Like I said earlier, I haven't even really figured out my schedule yet. I know for sure I'm going to be doing Thursday night episodes after the premiere or after the live eviction. I don't know if I'm going to do, I know I'll be doing more than just one video a week, but that's the plan anyway, is to not just do the one every Thursday night. I might do live feed updates whenever something eventful happens, if something big is going on. Not daily, but if something big happens, I might try and chime in and throw my perspective out there in regards to that. Who knows? I'm open to any and all suggestions that you guys have. I am craving feedback, and I'm soaking everything in. So, any thoughts, any opinions, any criticisms, any feedback you guys have, drop it in the comments down below. I'm excited to interact with you guys and see what you guys have to say, and see what ideas and tips you guys have for me, and like I said, any feedback. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. So if you're here, hopefully you like and subscribe, and you stick around. I'm excited to figure this out and just keep going. So thank you guys, and we'll hear back from you soon.